All right. All right. The gang is all here. It is once again that time of year. We are recording this on Tuesday, October 24th. By popular demand, we have to do our yearly all Alvarez sibling spooky episode ahead of Halloween. The gang is all here. We got my girl Mac. Mac, what's up? we got my girl Sidge. Sidge, what's up?
Eat this.
And we got my Osama bin Laden, Zach, with his long beard. Zach, what's up?
What's going on?
And we got MacKenna's two adorable kittens.
Oh my god! One of which is trying to climb on the curb.
Yeah, how's mom life?
In the eye yesterday. I was laying peacefully, and he was like above me because I blinked, just popped me in the eye. For no reason.
He was like, "Hey, ma, fuck you, fuck 12."
I got those Freddy Krueger fingernails, man, just in time for the Halloween.
Dude, what are the Halloween vibes where everyone is? Because MacKenna is in Berkeley.
It's too damn hot, man. I'm waiting for this weather to change.
All right, Sidge is holding the fort back home in SoCal, so it's too hot there. Zach is in Michigan.
No, I'm in Chicago.
You're in Chicago?
Yeah.
Where are you? Oh, just the lights are off. It looked like you were like in a wood paneled place for a sec.
No.
All right, what are the Halloween vibes in Berkeley, Chicago, and SoCal? Hey,
vibes are strong here.
Oh, now I guess for podcast listeners, yeah, Jesse's got his black cat, Hannibal, little chunky boy.
He's ecstatic, as you can see.
I mean, I'll be honest, like, because I guess we probably talked about this on one of the sibling episodes, but like obviously growing up in Southern California, there are like two seasons, hot and slightly less hot. And so like I feel like we were all the same in that we like loved when it like felt kind of like fall or winter, and so mainly like that was when it would rain or when it would kind of get cold. And so like now when I'm on like the East Coast or when I was in the Midwest, like this time of year is like I go full autumn, man. And so like the weather went from just like annoyingly hot all the way through September to just suddenly it was chilly, leaves were turning, like I'm wearing my fucking cardigan, I'm sipping my pumpkin spice. And yeah, like they actually had in the park near us up the street, they had like a thing that the city was putting on, like a pumpkin, I think it was called like a pumpkin march or something, but it was like a trick-or-treating thing through the park.
Nice.
And kids were, you could see like them walking with their lanterns like up until like 10 p.m. It was pretty cool.
That's cool. I mean, we've had just like a glorious October in Chicago. Today was like almost 80 degrees. It's been like a little rainy, a little chilly, like sunny, that nice crisp fall. And I would say like, I don't know, there's just a ton of families who now live in this area, which is cool. There's a ton of people who decorate, which is like gets me totally nostalgic for the way we used to do it. Like somebody has kind of like a B level graveyard in their front yard. I mean, you got to like give them a bit of a break. It's not like people have yards here in Chicago. But I would say the Halloween vibes are really strong. A lot of bars doing specials. Definitely some pumpkin spice. But it's been great. It's been like an awesome October. And it'll probably end up being like 40 degrees on Halloween night for the kids. But
dude, I'm still waiting for that, man. It's too hot to turn on the fireplace yet. I'm still getting torn up by mosquitoes. This is ridiculous.
I love how Hannibal is just chilling in Jesse's like arm, just like. But
He's like, yeah, whatever.
There's like
Yeah.
Sidge as a cat.
Yeah, I know. That's Sidge the cat. He's like just so uninterested in being here.
That was like
Zero emotion.
that was like a zine when he was getting butt humped by Tara.
Azim, longtime listeners may remember, was our childhood cat growing up in Brand.
the most nonchalant cat you will ever meet in your entire life.
Well, he's the great one.
Azim was a true king.
Yeah, now he wants to get down.
Yeah, Azim was the true short king.
Not fucking hair all over.
Well, Sidge, other than it being like annoyingly hot, I guess like, do people get spooky in your? Because you live in a massive apartment complex. It's like a city within itself. Do people get into the spirit?
Like as far as like decorations go within the complex, I don't see that much. But like there's haunted places all around here. Like obviously, Not Scary Farm's been going on. They got that shack Halloween thing at the Queen Mary. They got like haunted hay rides and all that stuff in LA. So there's there's a whole bunch of that stuff going on. I know in Old Town Orange, there's been some people that are still decking out for Halloween. There's this one house actually. Mom sent me a clip. I guess that was on the local news. This guy like totally decks out the house. It almost looks like the Haunted Mansion attraction. And they actually on Halloween night they close off that part of the street because everybody goes to see it because it gets so crowded.
So there's a dude over here, like where I'm at, Max, you'll know, like along the boulevard here, there's some like insane old like graystone mansions. And this one guy, he's got to be, I don't know, late 40s, early 50s, does a whole Harry Potter thing. And he lives alone. He comes out, he's got his Harry Potter like outfit on, and he takes it so serious. He doesn't let a kid like cross in for candy until he's got it all set up. And like he's just the biggest nerd ever. He lives in this big ass house, and like the one day like invites it open for people, but it's really impressive.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, his outfit is it's pretty intense.
Yeah,
that's
man.
Like his Super Bowl.
I can't wait to like just lean into that. Like,
oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, because I feel like you got. I don't know. I mean, like it was looking pretty bleak there for the past 3 years. Obviously, we had COVID there, but like I feel like last year I was hoping that folks would kind of bounce back, and it was like nothing happened on Halloween. So I was like, oh man, maybe it's like gone, like it's not coming back. So it's been nice to see more people sort of kind of jumping back into it, maybe even a little more than they had like in 2019. So I'm hoping that keeps going. But yeah, I even thought, I was like, oh, what if we did like a thing at the Real News, like a haunted house, open house at the Real News, but it's like downtown near City Hall, so it's not like any kids like fucking walk past it. Like you just get a couple of like lanyard wearing assholes like coming in at us in City Hall, or I don't know, a couple of homeless guys, like, and then the Real News staff, but that's about it.
Nice.
MacKenna, what about you? Do the hippies over in Berkeley party for Halloween?
So I don't know about Berkeley necessarily, but I'm technically in Oakland now, so I think that's why it's been way better, because it's like all the nice houses, like it kind of looks like Old Town Orange, but Old Town Orange is better, obviously. So people have decorated super cute. And so like today we had a class at a car dealership, and I just like walked through the neighborhoods, and I was like, it's finally chilly. Nice. So yeah, I just felt like nostalgic. I felt like I was like in Halloween when Jamie Lee Curtis was like walking in the neighborhood. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's totally like that. So I hope, I don't know, I don't think I'll get any trick-or-treaters. Like I'm by a residential area, but I'm in an apartment, but I would love to get trick-or-treaters, obviously.
Yeah.
So I don't know like what your apartment layout is, MacKenna, but like one of the things that people do here, which I feel like started during the pandemic because nobody wanted anybody coming close to them, is they buy like PVC pipe and
my friend did
like from their window and just drop candy down it. So like a lot of the condos and apartments will do it because you're like, you can't get into the gate or whatever. So people will open up their window and just kind of have the pipe and just throw candy down there, which is pretty fun.
Yeah, I kind of like that. There's like a Onceler element to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, and like, I guess like I mentioned to you guys before we started recording that the last bonus episode was a killer one that we recorded like deep in the mountains of Matewan, West Virginia. And have any of you guys been to West Virginia before?
No, I heard
No.
it's gorgeous at this time. I feel like I watch like a football game and they're at West Virginia's campus and it just looks phenomenal.
Yeah. I mean, like, it kind of hit me because I was like, I feel like other than mom, like none of us have been here. And like, it was always a bucket list thing for me to like drive through West Virginia in the fall. And then, and I was actually kind of bummed out because the conference that I was going out to speak at, like they were flying us out of there. But thankfully, because of a big shitty snafu with my flight back, I ended up having to rent a car and drive back to Baltimore 8 hours. And so I did get my drive. And at first I was just really annoyed, but then I just kind of stopped thinking about like how annoying it was that I had to drive. And I looked outside my window and I was like, Jesus, this is one of the most beautiful places in the world I think I've ever been.
So how many like railroad bridges over a river did you see? Because in my mind, they're just like all over West Virginia.
Well, the thing is like, so I know I saw one that was very striking, but like the thing about it, at least in the side of the state that I was in, is like you literally are snaking through the mountains the whole fucking time. Like even the cities like Charleston and Huntington, it was like they were just these kind of random plateaus in the middle of an endless range of mountains. And like they were still up in the mountains, like they were gorgeous little cities or little or big towns, however you want to slice it. But yeah, like the whole time driving to Matewan, even on the freeway, was like just snaking around through the mountains. The mountains were like, the leaves were in full effect. So like, it's just incredible colors. And I was driving back on that road like about a week and a half ago, and I was like bored and feeling kind of frustrated and homesick. So like I naturally like went back and I started playing our old Halloween episodes while I was driving through the West Virginia mountains. So that's the connection to the last bonus episode to now. And I was getting all psyched up because we talked about Ernest Scared Stupid. That was the first one, I believe. And then we did Workers versus Graboids, where we tackled the Tremors through a working class lens. That was a really good one. And then last year we ended up like, it was a little different format, but we ended up talking a lot more about aliens and Alien, the first one. But I feel like, and since I just recently listened to these, it's fresh in my head, but like we did say on multiple episodes, past sibling Halloween episodes, that like at some point we should do an episode on The Thing. Because I don't know, like, I guess like we'll start it kind of the same way that we did some of the previous ones by just talking a little bit about why we watched this movie so much and what our kind of childhood memories are of it. But like to me, this was like the ultimate. Like this is the defining like horror movie of my childhood. Like in terms of like, I think it's ultimately my favorite. I think it's still the one that probably scares me the most. And I don't know, it just has like a really big, like deep imprint on my memory. Like it was a kind of a crossing of a threshold for me from like a certain type of horror movie that to one that like really kind of gave me nightmares and like really just felt like it opened my world up to a new sort of visual type of horror and a even just like a plot that and a type of horror that struck me in a different way to anything I had seen before. Did you guys feel the same? And I guess like let's kind of just kick that off. Like what are your memories of The Thing, and like why were we so drawn to it? And do you guys feel the same about it in terms of all the other horror movies we watched?
Like the special and visual effects always get me, like, because like I mean, in this day and age, everything's all CGI and stuff, so it just seems so fake, which is one reason why I was let down by the prequel they did. But like just like the sound effects, like the noises that the thing makes, like when it wakes up and stuff, it's just really eerie and stuff. And then like even though like some scenes are like kind of bloody and stuff, it's just the eerie sound that the stuff makes, and then like the isolation factor too. Like you're out there literally in the middle of nowhere, thousands of miles from anything even remotely resembling human contact. The mystery suspense, like you don't know who's human, who's not. Everybody starts turning on each other. I mean, like it is definitely like the ultimate isolation movie, and yeah, definitely. But I said like the special and visual effects always creep me out. Just the way they just seemed like really eerie and stuff. I know a lot of people got grossed out and stuff by it, but I thought it was really cool. And those things even still like give me the heebie-jeebies every once in a while.
Yeah, I feel
and of course the music.
Oh, so I was about to make that point because like it's John Carpenter, right? Because so he's always got like super eerie music to it. It's funny too because I remember when I watched that the first time. I'm trying to think how old we were. I don't know, Jesse. I'm sure I watched it with you. We must have been like
probably early teens.
I'm trying to think the first, like 11, probably 12, like probably something 12, like that.
13, somewhere around there.
But like I had this, I was like on a total Kurt Russell kick as like a kid because I love the movie Tombstone. And so like I just remember being like, oh yeah, Kurt Russell's in that, so I gotta watch it. But you're right, it does have like it still feels like one of those movies where it's still kind of creepy. And just I don't know, it's funny because I feel more, sometimes when I'm here in Chicago, I feel like that Arctic connection. But like on a cold day, if I have to walk the dog or like go get something or whatever, it can be like super just desolate here. And it has that same sort of eerie vibe. And then I think just this idea that like the thing itself is a really like weird and creepy villain, but just the idea of like not the psychological torture of like not knowing who's who. I mean, there's just that incredible scene where they're putting the hot needle in the blood, and it's just it's so good. It's just so tense, and like you're waiting for it, and one of these things is gonna jump. And even like when I watch it, like again, it's like I know which one it is, and it's still like I still tense up and just like and like bracing myself for that moment. Just so good. And like very rarely am I like rewatching a movie and still get that same sort of like anxiety about a scene and being like, oh shit, like here it comes, and it delivers.
Yeah, I agree.
MacKenna, I was gonna say, I feel like in past episodes you talked about how this movie traumatized you.
Literally, I was like, I have a distinct memory of this, and I'm pretty sure I mentioned it last time because with what you said earlier, Max, of like it kind of being like this crossing of a threshold of like mom and dad didn't let me watch it for a long time, but they let me watch other horror movies, and then this was kind of like, oh, you're old enough now, you can see the thing. But in one of the many occasions in which I don't know, you guys just like left me upstairs or something, and I like came downstairs while you guys were watching it with mom and dad, because like where like when you were going down the stairs, we had that big closet by the like where that creepy ass doll used to be. I remember being right there, and then hearing from the thing of like, oh, it like digested the dog or whatever, and I was like, oh my god, like what's that? And then it was like crying, and then mom or dad like had to lie to me, and be like, no, they meant like digested it, and he was like copying like like some bullshit or whatever to make me like less afraid of it.
Ate him up and shit him out.
Jesus, Sitch.
Exactly. See, that's what I'm saying. So then when I finally did watch it, that part still made me sad. And I never want to rewatch this movie. Like I know every time I'm home and mom and dad are like, let's watch it. I'm like, no, I'm
yeah,
cool on that. Just because I don't know. Yeah, it was really terrifying. And I'm like, we've seen so many horror movies, like ones that are way more gory, but like I know we all talk about this all the time. I feel like that the special effects in that movie just felt so real that like it freaks me out more than any other type of CGI or modern
They
horror
felt
movie.
groundbreaking for the time because it came out what 82.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah,
like I said,
they
like
hold up too because they don't look
Yeah.
cheesy on like
no, I said yeah,
rewatch.
like the CGI, like the special effects they have this day and age. Some of it just seems like really cheesy, especially like when it comes to horror. It's like okay, all this blood and gut stuff, but like it's not real. Like it's blatantly obviously fake, but like in the older movies and stuff, like even though it's we're talking about something fictional like an alien, but like the visual and blood effects look a lot more real, which adds to the suspense and the horror part of it.
Well, yeah, and like I was thinking about that because in a recent Halloween episode that we did, we kind of talked about why the sort of like CGI version of this like just doesn't hit the same way, even if like they're really well done and like really expensive, like, and even if like because I was looking closely at the like like the rubber, the latex, and like the I don't know, it's just like it's so visceral, the special effects in this, the ways, the body horror of it, even like when I could notice that there were certain things I was like, okay, that looks a little less real than I thought it did at the time, but there's still something about it that I find like like revolting and creepy in a way that is still hits on a deeper level than anything CGI ever would. Like, I don't know, there's just something about there being a physical thing, even if it's a latex version of a guy with his throat slit and his wrist slit, because this is like one of the Norwegian guys that they find in the frozen, like abandoned outposts. This guy clearly killed himself to make sure, because he didn't want to get taken over by this alien entity. And so I was looking at that while I was watching the movie again, and I was like, yeah, like it doesn't look like, I would give it maybe about a B plus, A minus of like approximating reality, but I still kind of like reacted to it and like felt kind of viscerally grossed out and freaked out by it. And like there's and I know that in fact that like from what I was reading, that that was a reason why audiences didn't like the movie when it first came out. Like a lot of people were kind of disgusted by it. They thought it was excessive and like gross and horrifying. And so like initially maybe a lot of people weren't ready for it, but obviously now it's hailed as one of the best horror movies ever. And that latex and like, special effects work is like pointed to as one of the main reasons. But there was one other thing that I wanted to just like kind of put Zach on the spot here for a second, because we don't have to try to do a full working class analysis of this movie like we've done the past couple of years. I feel like there may be some things we can kind of hit on that are aligned with the show, but we can also just have fun and talk about this movie. But there was, I thought, one way that we could cheat and like sort of give it a working people base, because I did read even like the Wikipedia article notes this, and it made me think that like the movie came out in 82. It wasn't a big commercial success. A lot of people were like overly freaked out by the effects at the time, but also there was a recession going on, and like a deep recession, like like the most intense one felt since the last World War. And so there's a sort of like sense that while people are freaking out about that, well, you got the gas crisis going on. You've got the kind of like decay, like the cracks of the post-war, like New Deal kind of state are showing, and we're really entering a new era. But at that time, people are still just feeling the squeeze, and so there's something so bleak and hopeless and dark about The Thing that I think like a lot of people just couldn't take at that moment. And so I just wanted to ask, like, Zach, if you had any sort of like just economist, as the resident economist bro, just sort of like notes about what that time, what it was, what like what was really changing at that time? Like, what was happening to the economy and to people in 1982?
So it's interesting. So like in preparation for like not this particular question for this discussion, I was sitting there trying to find an angle to it, and what I came up with, I think you might be onto something there in terms of like what was going on with the economy. And I think even the setting itself, right? Like you're out in, Antarctica, on this mission, and it's not clear to me. I can't remember, but like not every one of them is a scientist, right? Like I can't remember what exactly Kurt Russell's doing there.
He's the helicopter pilot.
He's the helicopter pilot.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So, but what I took it as is like the whole this idea of something taking over bodies and like trying to corrupt other like physical beings. I wondered, I was like, oh, could you spin this as a metaphor of like sort of anti-union sentiment? Because it was Reagan, right? There was certainly, again, I'm not saying that John Carpenter sitting there had this message, but like the idea that there's this sort of corrupting idea that can kind of replicate and spread, and then at the end, like the bleakness of it is, you're not able to trust anybody. There's this whole you're out to get me, or how do I know that you haven't been corrupted by this virus either? And so it ends up being like hyper individualistic, right? It's only about you. It like fits with that sort of anti-commune, anti-togetherness into individual. And I feel like that was very much at the heart of the Reagan movement. And then at the end, to speak to like the bleakness, like there's this idea of like, even if I love that last line where it's like, what do they say?
Why don't we just wait here for a while and see what happens?
I don't think we're in a position to do anything about it, right? Whether it's whether one of us has, or is corrupted by it. There's that's just like it doesn't matter. Neither one of us can stop, like, or in any position to stop what's here.
Yeah, I think that's a really, really great point, because like something struck me watching it this time around that made me think of, I mean, I guess this is an obvious connection, but like it wasn't obvious to me as a kid, because I don't think I had seen Invasion of the Body Snatchers, or like, it just they just felt like alien movies to me, I guess, right? It's like, I think we saw Invasion of the Body Snatchers at like the Ochanos one time, and like I was creeped out by it, like the screeching noise, I even thought for that movie that was made like like 15, almost 20 years earlier, like even the visual effects there were still kind of creepy to me. This is the Donald Sutherland version.
I think that was made in the 70s.
Was that in the 70s?
I believe so.
I thought it was late 60s, but okay, so like made at least a decade earlier.
I mean, it's been remade. I don't know how many times. And the original one probably was in the 60s or 50s.
Yeah,
well, I think it was black and white. Yeah,
the Sutherland one is the definitive one for me.
Yeah,
but like that, like I didn't realize as a kid, but like that had a very strong anti-communist, like it was an anti-communist like parable, right? I mean, that it was what you were saying, Zach. I think that was like the context in which like the original was being written, and there is like something to that sort of, that says something about the vibe of the Cold War, where people were just infinitely suspicious of like this nefarious plot by another world power to infiltrate and take everyone over, and the ideology of communism like infiltrating people's brains and turning them into something they're not, losing their individuality in the process and becoming part of this Borg type thing that just like eats people's like souls and just replaces their bodies with this like alien sameness. And it's supposed to mean that like, but hey, we'll have world peace, but like we will lose all our individuality. That's kind of the horrifying element of Body Snatchers. But it kind of struck me that the thing kind of flips that in a sort of dark Reagan like age way, where it's not this. It's not exactly the same. It's not the same parable of like an alien entity infecting you, because in the Body Snatchers, you lose your individuality and become part of this larger sort of like organism, right? But in The Thing, you still present as your individual self, right? Like in Body Snatchers, like that was the creepy part, is that you would go up to someone who you look like the person you knew, and then they would just look at you and like screech, and they weren't the person you knew anymore, but they were just in their flesh like shape. But but Alien is very different, because the scary thing is like, well, they look and sound just like they normally do.
Right.
Yeah. And so it's like, it's not even that you lose your individuality, it's that your individuality is fully replaced to the point that no one will notice.
Exactly. Like the whole point of this thing is to copy you like perfectly. Yeah.
And it's like such a deep, like scary question, right? Because it's like, well, if it looks and sounds like me and it effectively is me, if it's a copy of me, but it kills me in the process, like, what is it? What am I? Right? You know, like, I mean, like, there's something really scary about that.
I guess like recently too, like coming out of a pandemic, like there's, you know, some pandemic things we can relate to too, because, you know, like going with COVID and stuff, how everything became like social distancing, because if you got too close to somebody, you know, you would get sick if somebody just so much as breathed on you, or, you know, germs through a handshake. And when you're watching this movie now, it copies or imitates a cell just by anything it touches, like just by a simple handshake or somebody just poking you on the shoulder, and you get infected. And so like, it just seems kind of weird, like how that we just kind of went through that with the pandemic, because then they have to start isolating themselves. Like, you know, they say, watch whoever you're with, you know, not too close, but not too far away. One of the guys, I think it was Fuchs, was suggesting, oh, everybody should prepare their own meals. Let's only eat out of cans, you know, and then they're forced to have to isolate themselves because, Blair, you know, Wilfred Brimley's character, even though he totally loses his shit, he's actually the only one who he's actually sane, even though he goes insane, because he realizes that they have to keep themselves isolated, because if they get rescued, if they call anybody for help and somebody comes to help them, this thing can get out to the civilized areas, and just like what we saw with the pandemic, the Spanish flu, it starts taking everybody over. And I think it said like entire world population affected like 72,000 hours from first contact. I think I was trying to do the math, and it ended up being like maybe like 3.5 years the entire world is copied and into perfect imitations. And so that's why like the self-isolation is, even though it sucks, it's absolutely necessary to keep contain this thing, because it is a virus in a sense. Well, so like there is some COVID, like this is just like how we went through this with COVID, like you can kind of also relate to that too, and how this movie is.
Well, Sidge, I wanted to take that and zoom out a little bit, because we've done this with the previous episodes. Just in case there are folks out there listening who have avoided this movie their whole life, right?
Live under a rock.
Right. So I guess like let's do Sidge's movie synopsis in 60 seconds. Like, so like what is like so we said it was directed by John Carpenter, released in 1982. It actually was based on a 1938 novella called Who Goes There? That I didn't know before, but yeah, Sidge, I guess like give us the plot in 60 seconds here.
And then it was actually made into, I think it was like a 1951 film, The Thing from Another World, which was black and white, but it's kind of the same premise. Well, I guess in 60 seconds or less, like the movie starts with like this helicopter chasing a dog that we find out is from a Norwegian base. Like it's a Norwegian helicopter chasing, trying to shoot after a dog, and then it comes to the U.S. outpost where the American scientists are, and they're wondering why the hell they're shooting at the dog. They do an autopsy, like they have to take down the Norwegian because he's going insane and shooting everybody. They do their autopsies and stuff, and everything appears to be normal. So they go to their base to find out what happened. So it's Kurt Russell's character McCready and the doctor. They want to see if anybody else is alive or if something else happened. So they go to the Norwegian base. They see that it's like it was a set of fire, like it's basically blown to shit, and they find like all the stuff everywhere. They see some of the the dead characters, like the guy who slit his throat and it's frozen. then they find that big block of ice that was empty, and it looks like, okay, they might have discovered something in the ice, but they don't know where it is. And then they find like some burnt remains that look like half human, half something else. So they take that back with them to study because this is a scientific outpost. And so
in Antarctica, right? I mean, I guess we say that, yeah.
Yes, it's in Antarctica, like I said, in the middle of nowhere. So, like, you're thousands and thousands of miles from anything remotely resembling civilization. So they bring this thing back to study. And so, like, they're doing autopsy, like, on the organs and stuff, and everything appears to be normal. But when you look at the remains itself, it looks like, like the thing's been, like, the person's been literally ripped in half. Like, you see the head, like, in two pieces. You see like 3 or 4 arms. It's like, really weird and shit. And then their first encounter is when they put the dog in the kennel with the other dogs, because then once the dog is by itself, that's when it's that's when the thing itself strikes. It needs to be, isolated from everything else. So then we find out that the dog that the Norwegians were chasing was an imitation that's of the thing, and so it turns into like its true self, and it starts to try to imitate these other dogs. And that's the whole premise of the monster, is to imitate other life forms and copy them so that they look perfectly like, like the dog or a human, but they're not. And so they stumble upon that. And first they try to figure out like how to take it down. And then I guess I forgot to mention that they saw, or they realized that the only way to really kill it is to burn it. Cause when they were at the Norwegian base, they saw like a bunch of empty things of kerosene, and that's how like they burnt the remains. So they realized that they have to burn it, but they're still, when they do the autopsy on this thing, there's still like cellular activity, so they want to try to keep it isolated, and then it just all basically goes to hell from there. It starts, getting to all these other guys one at a time. Some like we see like right away, like when the guy in the storage room is getting copied and tries to run away into the dark. But then there's other people that we don't know until they do like the blood test and stuff. But in a sense, that's kind of like what the movie's about. It's like this alien organism that was actually frozen in the ice for like, it crash landed like 100,000 years before they figure out. So like back in the the Ice Age, the Norwegian camp, when they found the UFO. Because like when McCready and the doc were over there, they found like some footage and stuff of the Norwegians, and it shows them discovering the UFO in the ice. So that's when they figure out, okay, that's when they must have dug up the organism, and then they blow up the UFO, as shows on the footage. And so they go to the site, they find the site, and then the UFO is just all blown to hell, and they say that it's been buried in the ice for like thousands of years. So. And then, the thing was basically frozen for the entire time, and now it's awake and it's pissed off. So you can imagine. And then it just starts, taking everybody over, one by one, until there's only, the last 2 standing. That kind of cover everything.
That was an on-brand summary. So.
Right.
You had us in the first half.
Hey, when you start, it's kind of hard to stop. Well, I don't want to get like, for people that haven't seen it, you don't want to give away the entire plot, but as far as who gets it and who doesn't. But
no, and I thought that laid a great base. So like want to build on that and talk a little more about like what is so scary about this movie? Because I actually feel like it's a number of things. We talked in a past episode about like what made Halloween scary, like that penetrated that sort of fiction of like suburban safety, right? And
what made that movie scary, like aside from the music and everything, is the fact that it's like that. But like the first one, up until the very end when he gets shot 6 times and falls off a balcony and walks away, that entire movie is completely like realistic, like something like it can happen. It probably has happened. That they said the urban legend of the escaped lunatic getting out, of a mental asylum and stalking you on Halloween night. Hiding behind your, in the back seat of your car, if, when you're babysitting in somebody else's house and he's lurking around the backyard, you don't know who he is, but that's what made that movie creepy. Like I said, like with the Thing, even though it's obviously, because it's science fiction, like obviously some of the stuff is alien, people believe in aliens and stuff, but like the stuff that really hits home is, like I said, like the isolation factor. Like I said, the fact that you're in the middle of Antarctica, in the middle of absolutely nowhere, So you got, and then like the radios aren't working, so you're trying to call for help and nobody's listening. So you're basically on your own. You don't know what the hell to do. You don't know what the hell this thing is. You don't know how to fight it.
And you're
And then
trapped inside because you
and then you're
can't go
trapped
outside.
Yeah, because then they got it's like the first week of winter, so they've got like all these storms hitting, so it's going to be 40, 60, 100 below, which is basically suicide. So yeah, that's the cabin fever effect kind of takes effect as well. Like when you're trapped inside, you can't go anywhere, and you start going batshit, which is what I think is what happens to Wilford Brimley's character. Even though, like I said, even though he goes insane, he's probably the most sane person there because he's the only one that realizes that we have to isolate ourselves, even if it means we all die, because if this thing reaches the civilized area, the entire world population is going to get destroyed within a few years. So like, yeah, the isolation factor, also, like I said, the mystery factor where the trust issue, like the trust or the non-trust issue, like, okay, I don't know who the hell is, you don't know who's human, and they start turning on each, like, this group of scientists that have been there, studying, and then all of a sudden they start turning on each other. They get the paranoia factor is what I'm trying to say. Everybody just starts pointing fingers at each other. Like the guy who was closest with the dogs, everybody's wants to jump on him because, okay, he was closest to the dog. He's got to be, one of the monsters. They find like a piece of McCready's torn clothes up in a furnace, and they think that he got it infected. Just everybody, like I said, starts turning on each other, and it's not like you can call 911 and call the police, and you have to, they're basically policing themselves. But it's when you don't know who's human and who's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, you can't tell me what to do. It's like it's every man for himself, and you can end up killing each other before we even realize what the hell's going on. And so that's definitely like a creepy factor too.
Yeah, and it's like, and also like, again, like the way that John Carpenter like approaches that makes it so fun. Like I think I just also have just like such an appreciation of what like a good fucking horror storyteller he is, because that was really jumping out to me this time around, because I remember as a kid, I think I was maybe a little younger than you guys were, because you guys had watched it. I got to watch it a little bit earlier, so I was maybe 11. So I felt a little more like MacKenna, that like it really fucking like scared me. It was, and then I was like, oh, I'm not a little kid anymore. I'm like, I eventually I got like into scary stuff, but I remember being really shocked when I watched this the first time. But it's like, I'm watching it and like I don't understand a lot of what's happening. Like I don't get why it starts with like the dog being chased and like the Norwegian shooting at it. Like and in fact, like you don't really find out what it is you're dealing with until like almost halfway through the movie. I guess between a third and halfway between the movie. Like it's such a slow build. And you just like, even then, like it makes you think of the name. Like it's something that's so like you don't know what the fuck like you're actually up against. You're trying to figure out what the hell is going on. Like you don't even have a name for this thing. It's just this thing, right? And so it's after the scene that you mentioned, Sidge, where we see the thing, like in the dog kennel, just like this really, again, viscerally horrifying scene that really scarred me as a kid. Like it is using these like weird alien powers and like to like basically digest and absorb and copy these living individual dogs. And you see so much of it and it freaks you the fuck out. But like, yeah, like that's like I said, that's like 35 minutes in. And like I miss that kind of attention to slow building storytelling. But I think the point that I'm trying to make is that what scared me about it was just like that kind of unknowability thing about it, that yeah, like you didn't actually know what this thing was. Yeah,
I was gonna say the same thing.
That. Oh, go ahead. Yeah, go, MacKenna.
Of like, that's what freaks me out about it. I mean, among multiple things, but like like you said, you go in like halfway through the story and it's like kind of like you have to put the context clues together, right? So you're discovering it. And then in the end, it's not really like everything doesn't get wrapped up in a bow kind of thing, or where, so it just is like you're really just watching this like intense struggle for, an hour and a half or however long it is. But it's not like now where, you have a movie and they give you all the entire backstory of it, right? And like everything gets summed up at the end and it's wrapped up in a bow and like you just know so much because like you said, people's attention spans are shorter now versus here, like there's still so many unanswered questions, but they don't even need to be answered in order for it to be effective. Like it's still incredible. Like you said, even just calling it The Thing is like, I always thought before I watched it and what it was, I was like, that's a stupid name. And then I was like, oh my God.
Like,
when I saw the original sign, because like in Suncoast, where it had like the guy, like the figure of this guy like outlined and like there was a light in his chest and then like it said thing. I was like, that looks dumb. That looks like stupid and hokey. I don't know what that is. I don't want to watch it.
Exactly.
And then also, I did. Yeah. Oh, go for it.
The other quick thing before I pass over to Zach was like when you guys were talking about sort of like relating it to modern times or, back in the context of the 80s, to me, I felt like the biggest thing this relates to is like climate change and how like, all those like diseases are essentially being, because the permafrost is like melting. And so there's like all of these things that people are like, who the fuck knows what's going to come out of it? And so now, and I think there's like a lot of fear of like, well, how are we going to deal with whether it's these animals that are coming out or diseases, etc. And there's just always something inherently creepy about finding a scientific discovery where you like humans realize they are so out of their element. And that's not unique to this film, right? It would happen in Alien, but just kind of like always that realization of like, these are the best scientists in the world, right? They're the ones who are studying this and they don't even know what the fuck is going on and they don't even know how to contain it. So like what hope is there for the rest of us, I feel like.
Yeah. I think you guys all nailed like what's really scary about it. I think the only thing I would add, and I think it's more of like an extension of what you guys have said, is the fact that you don't know if you have it. Like you can't tell. Like I said, the way that blood scene is so intense because as they're about to put that needle or whatever in each thing of blood, there's like zero confidence in anybody who's waiting for it. Like I think the only one who is kind of like maybe doing a little shit talking is Kurt Russell, right? Or has the bravado of, yeah, it's not me, but like
well, and just explain that scene a little bit too, like because it's based on the hypothesis. Because this is an important point that I think you're getting at is like after Kurt Russell, after like a really horrifying scene happens. I think it's when the fucking guys
the guy's head separates.
Up. Yeah, so that scene.
Like after he burns the guy and then his head separates and turns into that little spider and starts crawling away, then he realizes, okay, like every single piece is like an individual animal. So like even if you kill the whole, there's still pieces that can get away and then reconnect.
And so that each piece has an ultimate and defining like will to survive. Mm-hmm. And that is why it reacts to the heat. If you put it in the blood, is that it's going to feel threatened and it's going to react. Like there's an interesting hypothesis there that I think that. But sorry, Zach, I didn't want to interrupt you, but that feels like that's kind of like an important part of that.
Well, because remember the original test that they were going to do is they were going to mix contaminated blood with uncontaminated blood, and like if there was a reaction, like if you see cells merge, then they would know who was a human. But then they apparently somebody. Like we don't know exactly who, but someone that was infected got into the uncontaminated blood storage and slit all the blood sacs. So that test went to hell. So then that's when he got the idea, like after this scene where he sees like the head splitting off, that, okay, we're going to draw a sample of everybody's blood because if every little piece is an individual animal, then we can just, drop a hot needle. And if it reacts, then we know who's not who he says he is.
Oh, shut up, Jesse. Yeah, so that's like the. But that's the piece that, like, to me was really creepy, right? Is that like it in that scene? It's clear that none of them feel like they have any idea of whether it's got to them. Like back to, Jesse's like COVID analogy at the very beginning, before like you had any info, there was like that whole, you could be asymptomatic for a few days, right? So like when you were walking in the grocery store or wherever, like the whole not knowing if you had it or like the person next to you, like it kind of created, this like really intense, like just distrust and fear, and like distrust, like not even of the other person, but like of yourself. Like it was a really odd environment. And so I think like that was what always creeped me out. Cause like, and that's what makes the end so good. Cause like, the two guys there have no idea and it doesn't matter. Right. Like it just, I don't know.
Oh, yeah, everybody's got their theories, but even John Carpenter himself says, like, I'm the only one who knows, and he's never going to tell. He's going to take that secret to his grave. He's going to make everybody guessing. Like he's like that. I think that's probably why he never made a sequel to it, because he wants everybody to just use your imagination and try to figure it out for yourselves. But like every theory, he's always shot down. It's like, no, I know who it is, but I'm never telling. Like I know who's the thing. I was going to say
that's the other thing of why it's scary is because there's no like now.
There's no definitive ending.
They set up for a sequel. So like like even with like Halloween, even though I love Halloween, right? Like there's always an end thing where like, okay, you look over the balcony, he's not there, there's gonna be a second one.
Yeah. Or like, no, it can't end like this. You need to tell me who's human.
Exactly. Or they like intentionally set it up for the next one. And then here there wasn't that. So it's truly just like, again, there's no real like great resolution where you feel like, okay, I feel like
there's no Cinderella happy ending here, my friends.
Well, I was just thinking about that because like what should the ending be anyway? It's always like it's perfect, right? Because like you like if one of them's got it, like you got to kill both of them, right?
Well, because Kurt Russell even remember Child says like, how are we gonna make it?
Let him talk.
Grab some wood,
shut up,
bub. Is it's like but that's the thing, right? Like the end is clear that they both have to kill each other, right? Or like just destroy as much of that evidence as possible, or like prevent it from being able to replicate. It's just like you have to sit there and like figure it out, right? I mean, or am I off on that?
No, I think that's how I felt too, and it really kind of came together for me when MacKenna was talking just now, because you described it, MacKenna, as like this intense struggle that you're watching happen, and like that's really it, right? Because it's not even like a battle of like good against evil. I mean, I guess insofar as there is a like moral like message to it, it is the same message of like the plague villages in England that quarantined themselves and sacrificed themselves because they didn't want to spread it, the Black Plague, to other townships, right? So there's that base moral message maybe, but like other than that, everything we were talking about before, the setting, it's in Antarctica, like it's the first fucking week of winter, like it is the most isolated situation you can imagine, where you are literally forced inside with this fucking horrifying thing, and what you are essentially watching unfold is an intense struggle, as MacKenna said, for survival. But it's like two species or entities like struggling, and there's not even like, again, a morality to it. I think that's what I found so terrifying as a kid, is the same reason that I can't stand to watch like an animal that's about to be killed, or that an animal that feels cornered, like a deer or a dog like caught on the inside of the freeway, right? And like they just look so scared and terrified. And it's that most base thing in you that just wants to struggle to not die and to stay alive. And like you see these scared, terrified human beings like struggling that struggle and struggling it alone because they can't trust each other too. And all it basically is like just trying to hold on to being alive at this point. That's it. But you are fighting another entity that is trying to do the same, but for it to do that, it needs to and you. And like, and in the end, yeah, like there is nothing. I guess like Zach, like you were talking about the sort of Cold War messaging. Like maybe John Carpenter, maybe this is woke John Carpenter, who's just like, this is the end result of the Cold War. Like, you know, it is human annihilation in like the bare struggle of survival for two competing entities, kind of thing. But I don't read that into it. Again, what scares me is not some communist or anti-communist message. What scares me is that sort of watching over the course of like 2 hours, like people struggling to stay alive and losing that struggle, and just that terrifying me as a child, and being like the way that I really started to confront the question of death.
And it's also like, you know how in some movies, I mean, of course they always like kill off one that you really like and you feel bad about, but usually they also kill off characters who you're like, oh, okay, thank God. Like it doesn't matter that they died. You know, we all feel okay about that. But here, like you said, like you're watching them struggle and you're like, no, like I'm waiting for the one to be like, but not him, or like not the dogs. Like, why did the dogs have to go?
I found it so hard to watch the dog scene now. I'm such a softie. Like I can't watch animals being hurt.
The dogs had the biff, man. I'm sorry.
It's like that's a thing you don't do in movies, right? I'm like, okay, cool. They're gonna blast this old dude.
Yeah,
whatever.
you can kill thousands of people,
dog?
but God forbid if you kill the dog, like an Independence Day.
Mhm.
Everybody's getting blown to shit, but then the dog makes it into the side tunnel right before the fire comes, and everybody starts cheering.
Wait,
Never mind the fact
Jesse and Zach, do you guys remember watching Independence Day in the Ontario IMAX? And when that scene happened, like everyone just went nuts.
Everyone knows when the dog makes it, but everybody else is just getting blown to shit. Fuck the humans. It's all about the dog.
Oh man, that's such a vivid memory for me, being in the Irvine Spectrum. Yeah, watching that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's where you guys saw it. That's creepy.
Yeah.
It's so funny you mentioned that too,
Spectrum,
like, even like old movies. So I showed your niece. We watched Rear Window.
Oh, classic, classic.
And there's a scene, like they don't usually see the dog dying, but like the little dog who's like around the apartment complex like gets killed. And she was so upset about it. It was like almost like ruined the whole movie for her. Yeah.
Exactly.
But back to the whole like, you know, you can't kill the dog thing.
Can't kill the animals.
Yeah, and again, like that's again like why I find that scene so hard to watch now, where again it's the first time that you see the thing, like, because that's what you don't see normally in like Body Snatchers. I mentioned Body Snatchers.
It is natural form, basically.
Right, like because the Body Snatchers, it's all creepy. Like you see like the tendrils like reaching towards someone who's sleeping, and then it goes dark, and then the next scene there's someone different, right? And so that's kind of the genre, like that's the convention of the genre, right? Is like the transformation happens off screen because you can't really show it and make it look real. But that's what was so crazy about this movie is they showed you that transition part that you always wanted to see when you're wondering what does it look like when the monster like just attacks the shit out of the guy, or what does this thing look like when it's digesting people? And John Carpenter's like, all right, motherfucker, you want to see? Like, here, I'll show you. And then I'm just like, like, no.
Like, I don't want to see.
Yeah, but then the dogs, just to close the loop is like, I find it so hard to watch that scene, like, because there's like the dog that's trying to chew its way through the chain link fence, and it's just trying so hard not to die, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't watch it.
That's what makes that scene so good, right? And like he lingers on like the other dog's reactions, because that is exactly what's about to happen with all the humans, you know, is that they basically have the reaction of those dogs, right? Like you've actually said, like you're basically turned into just an animal trying to survive. But then like the sort of human aspect that you add to it, like again, my perspective at the end is, you know, like the survival doesn't matter because like everybody there has to die to prevent this thing from going. But like even with that understanding, there's still this like intense desire to be like, well, I don't want it to get me. Like you know, which again, I think the whole, it's so well done. I think that's why it's like really creepy. There's a huge psychological dimension to it that I think hits really well.
What gave this movie such a bad rap when it first came out, because it came out in '82, it came out the same year as E.T., the friendly alien. Everybody wanted to cheer and stuff, and like, the heartwarming story. And so everybody was so enamored with the friendly alien story that when the Thing came out, and it's the evil entity that's, just wants to destroy, mankind and the like I said, the dogs and all that stuff, people weren't ready for it at the time. Basically, like, they were still hooked on Steven Spielberg's, heartwarming story about the friendly alien going home and, making friends with the kids and stuff, with the humans. John Carpenter basically took that and said, "Fuck this! I'm gonna bring, the other half, the Hyde, like the Jekyll and Hyde, the Hyde story, and like, I'm gonna."
That's so fucking funny. To like picture like the scene of E.T. on the bike and his little poo face like in the bike seat, and then like split screen that with the fucking battle scene of the Thing, where it's like the monstrous thing with like heads coming out of it.
with the Blair creature and stuff. And like I said, like, at that time, like I said, people just weren't ready for it. They were still hooked on the Steven Spielberg story. That like I said, a lot of the critics, when this movie came out, they blamed, like, said the excessive gore. Like, said they didn't really buy into the evil alien entity and stuff, and just that's what gave it such a bad rap. It's just that it came out too soon after E.T. And like, if it had come out like maybe a year or two after E.T. was released, it would have done a lot better at the box office, because obviously it's gained a cult following since then. But what really gave it a bad rap, I think, it was just the timing of the release. Mm-hmm. Because like I said, everybody was just so enamored with the friendly alien. They weren't ready for the evil alien. Basically, the stomachs couldn't take it. Like, yes, like I said, the movie does have its bloody scenes, but it has the good story behind it. Like, I've always said, like, as a horror fan, like, as a teenager, I loved all the blood and guts. But like, now, as as an adult, like, I don't mind the gore as long as I have a good story behind it. And there's a great story behind the Thing. It's not just gore for gore's sake, like fucking Eli Roth and Tarantino and some of these other guys. Like, the gore is there for a reason. And it makes sense. Like, it really delves into the plot. But like I said, at that time, just people weren't ready for the switch. Basically, it happened too soon, and unfortunately, that's what gave the Thing a bad rap at the time it was released.
And like an alien,
so funny picturing E.T. as like potentially being
of technically the same genre as like Alien.
Imagine if E.T. just came
watch
to
E.T.
like,
get butt fucked by the Thing.
Jesus, Jesse, this is a podcast. God damn it.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
All the Phillies are about to go down.
Jesse, God damn it. I wanted to hear what MacKenna had to say.
Kenna, what the hell?
Oh my God.
Kenna, we don't have all night.
Oh, I remember what I was going to say. Okay, because I'm like, same. Like, I feel like gore can be done. It's sort of like the original, like the very first Saw, not the new ones where it just became all out. But like, I don't know, that first like attacking scene in the Thing just felt like it went on for so long. And like, a lot of times it's not even the gore that gets me, it's just like the actors like screaming, right? Like, just hearing like humans screaming while they're dying. Like, you're just like, I just want you to be dead already because I'm tired. Like,
this is too much.
Horrible listening to. Yeah, exactly. Like, instant death, break the neck. Like, I don't want to hear you like experience the own pain of your death. And I feel like that's what stuck out to me so much of the Thing, is I was like, oh my God, it just felt endless. Like, he was just alive while he was being eaten, essentially, which is like the biggest fear that anyone had, or that I have. Really.
Yeah, I feel like, God, no, that's so perfectly put. Because like, again, like, for a movie that has so much going on plot wise, like that it is an alien movie, right? I mean, like, even in like the opening credits, you have like that, really outdated CGI, like, of the alien, of the UFO cutting through the Earth's atmosphere. I don't think that was on the original version that we had on the VHS, but like on the version that's up on like, was it? Okay.
Yeah, that's how it opened up.
Okay, but that like looks hokey, and so like, but again, like, that almost becomes, I don't know, like, it just becomes a plot device for me at some point. Like, it feels like a very different kind of alien movie, like, because Alien, which we talked about in the last Halloween episode, came out in 1979, but like, that was still of a different type of alien movie, where it's like two races still like individuals like kind of warring with each other. But this is like, in that other sort of category, like the Blob, right? There is a genre of like of human absorbing, individual absorbing like things that the thing is technically like it's part of that genre.
Plus, with Alien, you're out there in outer space, whereas in the Thing, you're on your home planet, planet Earth, where like it's kind of taken over your home, basically.
Well, and again, like I think like I guess what I'm getting at and we should probably wrap this up. So I guess like we'll do final thoughts after this. But like the thing that I'm getting at is that for all of the stuff it has going on with the alien backstory, again, the larger like moral message of like we can't let this thing get to civilization or it'll wipe us all out kind of thing. What is most scary about this movie, what makes it such a good horror movie, is like what we've been describing, I think, is the fact that John Carpenter created the perfect sort of Saw-like environment where what you are going to watch is like the intense struggle for survival, and you're gonna see, I'm not gonna let you look away from what that looks like and hear those sounds and see and those like see what it looks like to lose that battle. And like I feel like like I didn't walk away from that movie like more scared of aliens. I walked away like just being more intensely scared of dying, and like that's I think what puts it in a different category of movie for me is that's why it will always be scary to me, I think. But anyway, final thoughts from you guys.
Kind of, because it's like no one wants to be conscious of their own death, right? Like everyone can, at least I don't know, me, I'm like, just take me in my sleep, because I don't want to be like aware of the fact that I'm now, slipping from this earth into whatever, into the ether, if there is anything. And then put on top of that of like I now have to like experience the pain while dying. So I'm not only like mentally processing that I'm losing this battle, but physically it is like the most excruciating thing that I could. Like there's zero rest in it, and it just seems to go on forever. It's like the two worst things that could possibly happen are in that movie, and so that's like, and that's why I don't like to rewatch it, because I'm like, I already am aware of my own mortality. I don't need a thing to remind me about this.
Dude, it's like you're in my head right now. This is exactly what freaks me out.
One thing like what's really scary too is like sometimes when people say what's worse than death is waiting to die. Like I remember I saw that in the Dawn of the Dead, like one of the guys that says like something worse than death is just sitting here waiting to die. And like at the very end, like when Childs asks McCready, how are we going to make it? And McCready just smiles and says, oh, maybe we shouldn't, because, they don't know if one of them is, still human or not. And to save, the world civilization, they know that they probably just have to sit there and die. I mean, freezing to death is one thing, but like, eventually they might have to, shoot each other or something just, for the benefit for the world to go on. Cause there's still no guarantees that if they get rescued, that one of them isn't carrying the intruder cell. So that's definitely, I say, one thing that's just really creepy is just not only that you're going to die at some point, but just sitting there waiting for it to happen, or eventually you have to do it. That's something that's just
the creepy part is that you are surviving to die. Like in this is only one outcome, and it's like until everything sort of settles down, maybe they didn't really realize it, but I'm sure like in the back of your mind, like there's got to be this realization that like nobody's getting out of here unless we want to like if the risk of bringing this thing to the population is, even 1/1,000,000%, you don't do it. Right. So the whole survival thing is that like, I don't necessarily like, I'd rather kind of choose my way out. I don't want to go out the way that guy did. But the whole point is that you're surviving to be able to like make the final choice yourself. That's what's creepy about it.
Yeah, because maybe like you might not be infected, but listen, what if you got like a piece of blood or something on your winter coat and you carry that back to the civilized areas, Like you can have like a little organisms on your clothing.
Wait, what did you say, MacKenna?
I said this is so like it's an absurdist view. Like I didn't even think about this before, but we should have until Zach said that. But it's like, the like absurdist sort of philosophy, like very much like Albert Camus, myth of Sisyphus is like, Your whole point in life is you're rolling up this hill, like you're rolling the stone up this hill for nothing. Like it's meaningless, like you're gonna die eventually, and the whole time it's excruciating. And so like basically, I mean, it's not really the thing because you get meaning out of realizing that it's futile, but like here, like until Zach said that, I was like, oh my god, this is a metaphor for life. That it's just a struggle. Like you are struggling daily to just eventually die. Insane. Oh my god,
It's a good way to wrap.
Boom. I was gonna say that's a great and bleak spot to end on, but
I think we said everything needs to be said. Go watch the thing.
You said it all, man. Said it all. Well, yeah, I mean, like, I don't know, that was a dark ending, but it's still a really, really fucking good breakdown of the thing. And I love you guys, and I always look forward to doing these.
To be watched.
Yeah, so I guess I'll end the recording now, but I wanted to just sort of like break the fourth wall and leave our listeners with like a happy Halloween from the Alvarez family. Don't think about death too much, but go rewatch the thing. Yeah, it's really intense.
Yes, you must watch it.
And we'll see you guys. And write into us and let us know, if you got suggestions for Halloween 2024 next year. Peace.